Imagine being one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Without trash talk, without scandals, without the spotlight. This is the story of Tim Duncan, the man who built a dynasty without saying much. A five-time NBA champion, a quiet assassin. This is not just basketball history. This is a lesson in greatness through silence. Before Tim Duncan ever picked up a basketball, his life was pointed in a completely different direction. On the quiet island of St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands, the boy known as Timmy didn't dream of buzzer beaters or championship rings. He dreamed of gold medals in swimming. From an early age, Duncan showed incredible promise in the water. He specialized in the 400-meter freestyle and trained with Olympic-level dedication. Many believed he was destined to represent the United States in the Olympic Games, and he believed it too. But then, fate intervened. In 1989, Hurricane Hugo tore through the Caribbean with devastating force. In just a few hours, it reduced entire structures to rubble, including the only Olympic-sized swimming pool on the island. For Duncan, it was more than just a physical loss. It was the death of a dream. With nowhere to train and open water swimming discouraged due to fear of sharks and rough tides, his path in swimming came to a sudden, painful end. He was just 13. Left adrift, Tim struggled. Grief, loss, and teenage frustration swirled together. But life, as it often does, offered a different door. On the urging of his older sister Cheryl, a former college basketball player herself, Tim reluctantly picked up a basketball. He was tall, sure, already towering over most kids at his age, but raw, clumsy, unpolished. No one watching him at that time would have predicted greatness. But there was something beneath the surface, something you couldn't measure on a stat sheet. It wasn't just his height, it was his discipline. The kind forged by years of swimming laps, following strict routines, training in solitude. And basketball, unlike swimming, was a team sport, something that forced Duncan to grow in new ways. Slowly, the ocean faded into the past. The hardwood became his new world. What began as a heartbreaking setback became a rebirth, a detour that rerouted history. Without that hurricane, there might be no 5 NBA titles, no Spurs dynasty, no silent legend. By pure chance, or perhaps by silent design, basketball gained a giant, not just in stature, but in presence, in legacy, and in quiet power. The NBA didn't discover Tim Duncan. A hurricane delivered him. The NBA has always loved noise. The bright lights, the trash talk, the chest thumps, the viral moments. In an era defined by ego and spectacle, Tim Duncan was a ghost in the storm. While others shouted, he stood in silence. While opponents stared down the crowd after a dunk, Tim simply jogged back on defense. No screaming, no flexing, just the same calm face. Focused, stoic, undistracted. He was the eye of the hurricane, the still point in a league of chaos. When Shaquille O'Neal, the most dominant physical force of his generation, tried to intimidate Duncan with his size, power, and personality, Tim didn't flinch. He didn't fight back with words. He fought back with footwork. When Kevin Garnett, the king of trash talk, whispered insults into his ear, clapped in his face, and pounded his chest like a warrior, Duncan didn't respond. He just moved into position, asked for the ball, and executed. Turnaround jumper, bank shot, 2 points. When Kobe Bryant, the assassin, tried to take over games with flair and fire, Duncan countered with silence and substance. He didn't match Kobe's speed or elegance. He didn't have to. He slowed the game down, controlled the pace, and bent the court to his rhythm. That was his superpower.
Stillness. Where others erupted with emotion, Tim absorbed it. He didn't react, he processed. He didn't get rattled, he recalculated. And when the moment came, he responded. With points in the paint, with blocked shots, with assists from the post, with rebounds in traffic, and most importantly, with wins. It wasn't just that Duncan was calm, it's that he made you feel the pressure by never showing it himself. Opponents would yell, flex, and bark, and he would just look through them. No emotion, no acknowledgement. As if the real game was happening on a level they couldn't see. This wasn't indifference. It was intensity, distilled to its purest form. And perhaps most impressively, it wasn't an act. It was who he was. Unshaken, unmoved, unstoppable. In a league addicted to noise, Tim Duncan built his legacy in silence. And somehow that silence said more than words ever could. Tim Duncan never played for highlights. He played for results. In a league fueled by dunks, crossovers, and no-look passes, Duncan's style was almost invisible to the casual fan. No flash, no flair, no theatrics. But underneath that simplicity was something far more rare: perfection. He wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the most athletic. He didn't leap over defenders. He outthought them. Every move had purpose. Every step was calculated. Every shot a result of angles, timing, and geometry, not impulse. His signature move? The bank shot. In the hands of most players, the bank shot is outdated. In Duncan's hands, it became a weapon. He didn't just use the glass, he commanded it. From 10 to 18 feet, right or left side, he'd kiss the ball off the backboard with such consistency that defenders stopped jumping. It was like watching a surgeon perform the same incision flawlessly over and over again. He was a master of positioning. He didn't fight for space. He arrived there early. He anticipated rebounds, reading the arc before the ball even left the shooter's hands. On defense, he didn't block shots out of desperation. He timed them, turning contests into surgical disruptions. His footwork was textbook. His post moves were quiet, efficient, brutal. Drop step, shoulder fake, soft touch. 2 points. There was no wasted motion, no wasted energy. Just cold, disciplined execution. Commentators often misunderstood it. They called it boring. They said, he's great, but not entertaining. But ask the ones who really know the game. Ask the players. Ask the coaches. Ask the defenders who tried to stop him. They'll tell you, Duncan wasn't boring. He was a nightmare. Because he never gave you anything to exploit. No emotional outburst, no risky passes, no sloppy plays. He reduced basketball to its most essential form and mastered it. Like a composer writing symphonies with only 3 notes. Like a chef who makes the best meal of your life with just salt, fire, and time. Tim Duncan made the basics look like brilliance. He didn't need fireworks, because his game was already fire, just hidden beneath ice. And in that mastery of fundamentals, he taught the world something we rarely celebrate. That greatness doesn't always look spectacular. Sometimes it just looks right. In the chaos of the NBA, dynasties are rare. Sustained greatness is even rarer. But under the quiet leadership of Tim Duncan, the San Antonio Spurs achieved both and did it on their own terms. It began with a partnership. On one side, Greg Popovich, a stern, brilliant tactician with a military background and a no-nonsense philosophy. On the other, Tim Duncan, a humble, introverted genius who didn't demand respect, he earned it. Together, they created more than a team. They created a culture built not on hype, but on habits, not on personalities, but on principles. And as the league turned into a theater of lights, egos, and sound bites, the Spurs became the outlier, a team that didn't play to be liked. They played to win. Enter Tony Parker, quick, fearless, unpredictable, a French point guard who slithered through defenses and brought speed to Duncan's patience. Enter Manu Ginobili, the wild card, the magician, the risk taker. He broke plays, bent logic, and made the impossible look routine, while always deferring to the team's greater mission. But at the center of it all was Duncan. He wasn't loud, he didn't seek attention, he didn't care about stats.
He was the anchor. The offense revolved around his touch in the post, his vision from the elbow, his gravity near the rim. The defense relied on his awareness, his positioning, his ability to rotate and clean up everyone's mistakes. He didn't just fit into Popovich's system, he was the system. His humility set the tone. If the best player wasn't above criticism, no one was. If the captain could run back on defense without complaint, so could the rookie. If Duncan could take a pay cut to keep the team competitive, others followed. That's how dynasties are built, not with declarations, but with decisions. The results? 5 NBA titles in 3 different decades: 1999, 2003, 2005, 2007, 2014. Each one with a different roster, different challenges, different style, but the same constant at the core: Tim Duncan. He wasn't chasing a legacy, he was just playing the right way, every night for nearly 2 decades. While others changed teams, formed super teams, sought endorsements, and built brands, Duncan stayed in San Antonio. One franchise, one coach, one philosophy. The media didn't always notice. The headlines often belonged to bigger markets, flashier players. But the trophy engravers knew the truth. The scoreboard told the story. And the league quietly realized, you don't need noise to build an empire. You need trust. You need discipline. You need Tim Duncan. In professional sports, leadership often comes with a megaphone. It's the fiery locker room speech, the chest-pounding roar after a big play, the visible vocal dominance that demands attention. But Tim Duncan led differently. He didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't need to dominate the room with charisma or aggression. He simply did the work, every single day. First in the gym, last to leave, always prepared, always present. Ask anyone who played beside him, from rookies to future Hall of Famers, and they'll tell you the same thing. Tim Duncan made everyone better. Not through words, but through example. He didn't complain when teammates missed rotations. He didn't yell when they turned the ball over. He just got back on defense, covered for them, encouraged them, quietly, consistently, without judgment. To Duncan, being a great teammate wasn't about inspiration. It was about accountability. And that's what made him so powerful. Because when he gave everything, when he, the future Hall of Famer, the franchise cornerstone, played unselfishly, sacrificed stats, took pay cuts, embraced coaching, no one else had an excuse. Veterans followed his lead. Young players grew under his shadow. Even stars adapted to his rhythm. He was the alpha without ever declaring it. As Kevin Garnett once said, he was the alpha without speaking. As Kobe Bryant, perhaps his fiercest Western Conference rival, admitted, "If it wasn't for Tim, I'd have more rings." And LeBron James didn't mince words when asked, "Tim Duncan is the greatest power forward of all time." But what's striking is this: Duncan never asked for recognition. He never chased applause. He never expected admiration. And yet it came. Not through media narratives, not through viral highlights, but through the unshakable respect of those who knew the game intimately. Opponents feared him, teammates revered him, and coaches, even the ones who lost to him, admired him. Because Duncan embodied something that feels lost in modern sports: selflessness. He didn't try to win the game by himself. He tried to win with everyone. And in doing so, he created something rare. A championship culture built not on personality, but on principle. Not on noise, but on trust. He wasn't just the engine of the Spurs. He was the glue, the compass, the quiet voice in the storm that reminded everyone, this is who we are. This is how we play. This is how we win. And maybe that's why, despite 5 championships, multiple MVPs, and nearly 2 decades of excellence, he was celebrated quietly, almost exclusively by those who understood the game at its core. Because Tim Duncan didn't play for attention. He played for excellence. And those who truly know basketball, they still whisper his name with reverence. In an age where every dunk demands a celebration, where every player has a camera crew, where success is measured in sponsorships, followers, and trending clips, Tim Duncan chose a different path. He never chased MVPs. He never launched a signature sneaker. He never built a global brand or a media empire. He just showed up, put on his jersey, and won. Silently, consistently, without asking for anything in return. Over the course of 19 seasons, he led the San Antonio Spurs to more than 1,000 victories, a staggering number that places him among the most successful players in NBA history. But you'd never know it by looking at him. There were no chest humps, no social media posts, no self-congratulations. Because for Duncan, winning wasn't about showing the world, it was about doing the job right. He won 2 regular season MVP awards, 3 NBA Finals MVPs, 15 All-Defense selections, 15 All-NBA selections, and yet he never lobbied for votes, never campaigned, never called himself the greatest. In fact, he almost seemed uncomfortable when the spotlight turned his way. Interviews were brief. Praise made him deflect. Accolades only mattered if they came with a ring. And while the league was filled with stars building empires off the court, Duncan's empire lived in the win column.
He never appeared in headlines for controversy. No fights, no arrests, no contract drama, no locker room outbursts, not even a memorable quote. In a league where drama often surrounds greatness, Duncan didn't just avoid it. He made it irrelevant. You couldn't bait him. You couldn't shake him. You couldn't pull him into your chaos. His power wasn't just in his stats. It was in his discipline, his emotional control, his ability to stay focused in a world designed to distract. And that, perhaps, is what makes him one of the rarest athletes of all time. He didn't want to be famous. He just wanted to be great. And in choosing that path, the quiet one, the steady one, the thankless one, he achieved something louder than any highlight could scream. Legacy. In 2016, after nearly 2 decades of basketball dominance, Tim Duncan quietly stepped away from the game. But true to everything he was, there was no farewell tour, no grand speech on center court, no emotional press conference filled with tears and promises. There was only a simple, 1-page statement. Short, direct, and humble, just like the man himself. No fanfare, no spotlight, no need for applause. He didn't want the noise. He didn't want the spotlight. He didn't want the fanfare. He just wanted the game to move on. But while he left the court in silence, his absence reverberated through the league like a thunderclap. Teammates, opponents, coaches, and fans suddenly realized the foundation they'd taken for granted was gone. The quiet anchor, the unshakable presence, the big fundamental. San Antonio wasn't the same without him. The NBA wasn't the same without him. For years, his name had been a constant, a symbol of stability in an ever-changing league. Now, the silence he left behind was louder than any crowd. And as the new generation rose, they learned to play in the shadow of his legacy. The legacy of a man who never shouted to be heard, but whose every move spoke volumes. Tim Duncan's retirement was not the end of a career. It was the closing chapter of an era defined by humility, discipline, and excellence. An era where greatness didn't need to roar to be remembered. Where the loudest voice was the one spoken through action. And so, with no fanfare, no spectacle, and no noise, Tim Duncan left the game. Not with a bang, but with a whisper that will echo forever. Tim Duncan never wanted to be famous. And that's exactly why he became timeless. He taught us that leadership doesn't require volume, that greatness doesn't need celebration, that silence can be stronger than noise. While others talked their way into history books, Tim Duncan played his way into immortality. And now, we ask, is true greatness loud and visible, or does it live in those who let their actions speak? If you believe in greatness without ego, in legends who don't need the spotlight, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who needs to hear the name Tim Duncan. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Was Tim Duncan underrated by the media, or did he simply prefer it that way?